So we're now live. Happy Friday to everybody. Hi guys. We have a group of 5 guys with me today. I'm pretty excited. This is the Industry Insight from Athletes. So we're hosting this event every Friday, every 2 weeks on Friday afternoon, trying to educate athletes and former athletes on different industries and learning from those who have been in this industry for a while. So for this event today, just going through quickly the usuals. We're recording the event. It's going to be available on our website. We'll share them also with our attendees. There are a lot of other events available to attend. You can check them out on our website at athletessoul.space/events. And then as usual, and if you're new, you can ask questions throughout the event. So you can do so by clicking on the Q&A box or the chat box, and then I'll take your question and we'll ask them to our panelists. Or you can wait until the end of our conversation here, and then we'll take questions for the last 10 minutes of the call. So right now I'm going to pass it on to Evan, who is our program director at Athlete Soul, and he's going to take it straight to our guests. Thanks.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Miriam. And welcome to Industry Insights on the sales industry. And we're going to do just a quick intro for all of the participants. And then we'll kind of get into just a little bit of a discussion around their careers and kind of their daily activities and their jobs. So we're going to start with Mike. So Mike, I'm going to give you the chance, just kind of like introduce us, to introduce yourself and tell us your sport and tell us your job in your industry.
Yeah, thanks, Evan. My name is Mike McDonald, and I went to Stanford University, graduated 2001. I played basketball there all 4 years. After a while of working in Palo Alto, I moved to Boston and pursued a job in medical device sales, first working for Stryker. And currently my job is with Arthrex, and I'm a regional sales manager. And I've been here for approximately 6 years now, and it's been great. It's been a lot of fun, learn a lot every day. We get to work with a lot of top surgeons, and yeah, I'm really excited to be here on this call.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Mike. Yeah, so the whole career in surgical sales, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for 2 years when I graduated from college, I worked for a venture capital company out in Woodside, and then transitioned into surgical sales. First in marketing, did a little finance with Stryker as well, and then really moved to the sales side of things about 2000 and I believe 7. So yeah, I've been doing sales now for about 13, 14 years.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. And now we're going to throw it over to JP. So JP, please introduce yourself and tell us your sport and your sales role. Oh, I think you're on mute.
First webinar.
Great.
Yeah, thanks, Evan. JP McDonnell. I graduated from Pepperdine University in 2010 and played water polo all 4 years there. I now live in Venice Beach and work in sales. I sell for a digital marketing agency that specializes in small to medium-sized businesses. And I've kind of had a interesting, very unconventional past. After college, I went over to Europe for 3 years and played professionally because water polo is a tiny sport. There's no professional, there's nowhere really at all to play here in the United States. So, and my ultimate goal around 2012 was to make the Olympic team. So I was training for that full time. So that brought me over to Italy and Budapest, and just played full time for 3 years. And then in 2013, I transitioned out of that and started to get into my career. Instead of jumping right into like a 9-to-5 or corporate structure, I decided to start my own business, and with my brother actually. And that was down here in Santa Monica. And through that, I'm now working again in digital marketing.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. And we'll throw it over to Derek. Derek, same thing. Just go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us your sport and tell us your role in sales at the moment.
Hello, everyone. I'm Derek Hall. I also went to Stanford University. I played football there for 5 years, class of 2010. And then I played professionally for the 49ers for about a year and a half. And then post that, got into software sales and been doing it ever since, doing several different sales positions, and been able to climb the ranks. And now I'm a director for sales engineering for a software company out here in Los Angeles.
Awesome. Awesome. Very cool. Thank you, Derek. And we'll throw it over to Nick. Nick, we don't get to see your beautiful face, but we can hear you loud and clear. So let's just throw it over to you and give you an opportunity to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Evan. And Miriam, thanks for having me on today. I'll try and log in again after this quick intro here to see if I can get the video working. But I played collegiate hockey at Notre Dame, and a couple of years after college, I bounced around in the minors, and actually, like JP, I went overseas for a short period of time as well. So when I was done playing hockey, like most of the folks on the webinar today, there was a lot of questions at hand. So I started out, like Mike, working for a med device company called Stryker. I was there for just about 2 years, and then made the transition over to the tech side of things. And I've been in tech sales ever since, and I reside in Minneapolis today. Yeah, that's where we're at. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Yeah. So thank you guys so much for all joining us. And, obviously have a very diverse group of not only sports that you guys played, but also the different types of sales industries that each of you are in. So I want to just kind of, before we kind of start getting into some of the more, deeper things, let's just kind of throw it to each of you and just describe for us just real briefly, kind of like, what is your daily role like? In other words, are you on the phone all day? Are you out meeting people? Just kind of give us a little bit of a taste for what a day in the life for you looks like. So we'll kind of just go in the same order. Mike, we'll start with you.
Yeah, Evan, obviously with everything going on with COVID, I've just been on the phone recently for the last few months. But before that, my days really consist of meeting with my sales reps, whether it's in Boston or New England, or maybe going to New York City and doing that there. So I cover geography of the Northeast and half of Canada. So we have about 14 sales reps, and they're focused on orthopedic sales and video at accounts. So a lot of my time is spent with them, whether in surgery, working with surgeons on particular cases, or meeting with administration on potential deals we're trying to move forward. I think the other thing that we do a lot of times is a lot of training. So we're always hiring new reps, or we're always hiring advanced reps too, who've been maybe with a different company, and just making sure they're, one, qualified to work with us, but two, they really understand the technology that we're offering these facilities. So day to day, that's kind of what I'm doing on the road. But recently, it's been a lot of these Zoom calls and a lot of phone calls we've been on, which has also been great because you're able to get a lot of things done.
Yeah, that's great. So kind of a blend almost, now that you're managing multiple regions, multiple people, it's not only overseeing those sales reps, but it's also developing them as well. So kind of like a two-pronged focus.
Right, exactly. And I think as being a beginning sales rep when I first started, that's what was key for the managers that I had. They always had to make sure that not only were we abreast of the technology, but also that we were just kind of moving ourselves forward. One of the things that I always say to my guys is that, just like sports, every day we have to get better. And our days are so different depending on the surgeries we're doing or the meetings we're having. So you kind of have to be on your toes every day and just being ready. And it's really exciting having a job like that where you can actually do things every day, and every day is going to be different. So, I think we take a lot of our sports background into our days every day. And, you guys probably do the same, especially with software. And JP, it sounds like you're doing the same thing as well.
Yeah, definitely. And JP, let's throw it over to you and just share with us a little bit about what your day-to-day looks like in kind of the digital marketing space.
Yeah, sure. So I am pretty early. I'm 16 months in with Rev Local, which is a digital marketing agency, and my official role is a digital marketing consultant. So I'm an individual sales consultant, and our operations are out of Ohio. But how it's set up is we have sales consultants across the U.S. And so we're out there onboarding clients, and then our operations and strategy is out of Ohio. And so with being pretty new to Rev Local and kind of coming into this territory, about 80% of my time is focused on outbound. So I'm out there really building my client base and, you know, going out and just pretty much having as many conversations as I can with business owners in the SMB space. And what's really kind of interesting about this role, and I've never done door-to-door sales ever in my life, and that's what what Rev Local is built on. So it was built on going literally door to door to local businesses, whether it's a dentist, whether it's a hair salon, a barber shop, a restaurant. So we service all industries. And so that's what I was doing for up until March. And then our whole sales process got flipped upside down. It's like we couldn't go and walk anywhere really. And so, you know, like Mike, it's just been a lot of phone calls, more strategy as well, kind of being more, you know, instead of having a monthly strategy call with a current client, is we have to do weekly strategy calls because things are changing so much. So I'm fortunate to be, and I think a lot of us in sales, like I love sales because we'll always have a job, right? Because we're bringing in revenue. So that's what's really exciting about this time is like, I've been kind of busier than ever. And, but still right now it's a lot of, I'm not in a management position. So I'm just kind of really earning my stripes at the company and trying to crush it and make President's Club.
Love it, man. And so you before COVID, it was a lot of like on the ground, like actually like walking into businesses, and you're trying to talk to business owners specifically about kind of the strategy and the value that you guys can provide, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So we would literally, like how I started 16 months ago was like it was a brand new territory, which is amazing. Like there's the West Coast, because we're based in Ohio, we're kind of slowly came out here, and they said, just walk out your front door and go to the main street and then start doing your little grid. So I would just walk in, say, you know, hey, just curious, I live down the street, who handles your marketing? And they would say either like, go screw yourself, or hey, how's it going? You get like the range of different responses, but yeah, that's pretty much it, being face to face. And that's like maybe a longer conversation of like that process, but incredibly difficult, like grindy, but very productive. So
yeah, kind of like what Mike was saying, where every day's new, you're having a bunch of different new conversations, and then also having to kind of, you know, midstream adjust at times if you do kind of get the door shut in your face, if it does happen time to time. So, okay, really cool. Derek, let's jump over to you and just tell us real briefly about your job and kind of talk to us about what your day looks like.
Yeah, certainly. So for those who aren't as familiar with the tech industry, the sales engineer position is kind of a niche role required when you have a product that's pretty complex and an evaluator who's going to want to get in the weeds of how a product works. So our job is to be, you know, very technical, full experts on the software that we sell and all the ways you can tweak it, extend it, work around its limitations to meet a particular customer's needs for your product. Since software is like a very much a constantly evolving thing, constantly changing thing. So our job is to really be a technical resource to support account executives with closing more difficult to close deals when they got to get in the weeds of what your product is. So that's our role. For me, in terms of my day-to-day, so as the leader of the org, I've got about 15 sales engineers rolling up to me. So my day is really focused on driving development for our reps, accountability to the standards that we set and the performance metrics that I set for the team, and then as well just overall sales strategy and product strategy. So I'm constantly meeting with frontline managers, especially these days with COVID, with us being fully remote for the last 2 months, we have to be especially on top of what all of our reps are doing. So I'm constantly checking in with how are they doing performance-wise, how are they doing morale-wise, and making sure that, you know, we're on top of any issues that could come up. And then as well, our product, we release new features every month. So it's a lot of work to stay on top of that. So very focused on making sure the team is enabled for success and building training programs, making sure we're evaluating how they present the product to making sure they're doing it the proper way. So constantly managing the enablement and training process is an ongoing thing that requires a ton of attention. And then lastly is strategy. So, we're constantly looking to expand into new markets. And so working with other leaders across departments to strategize on how we present our software in a way that's really compelling and connects with our particular buyer. So we have a higher likelihood of success, right? We all know we all work in sales. It's really about tailoring to what matters to that buyer. And making sure we're meeting their needs and evaluating that effectively. So I'm making sure I'm putting my 2 cents from the product sales perspective on how we can really accomplish that.
Yeah. Love it. And, again, going back to what Mike and JP said, just kind of like the different scenarios you're dealing with, not only day to day, but seemingly hour to hour, from training to managing your people to also having kind of input on the strategy. So really, really, really neat. And Nick, let's go over to you and just kind of tell us a little bit about your role now and kind of what your day to day looks like as well.
Yeah, awesome. Can you hear me okay?
Gotcha.
Okay, good. Just making sure. So I'm a territory manager, and I live in Minneapolis, but I cover all of Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota. The product that I sell is relatively basic, but I can call on any business no matter what size. So I could be calling on a landscaping company of 150 employees 1 minute, and then the next minute I could be calling the Targets or General Mills of the world. Normally I'm selling to titles like the VP of HR, or sometimes the CFO will be involved as well, because there are some financial aspects to my product. But this job, what I'm doing now, is absolutely a mixture of grinding. And in order to grind, you have to set forth a path for yourself and actually be extremely detailed with what you're going to do on a day-to-day basis, because I've had days where, I'm not going to lie, I've gotten stuck going down rabbit holes, and then I realize it's 3 p.m. and I wasted 2 hours instead of sticking to my plan. So there's a mixture of over the phone sales calls. Prior to COVID, I would be on the road probably an average of 2 days a week, doing sales calls in person, but also remotely from home when I'm in the office as well. So heavy mixture of prospecting mixed with strategically position our product to best suit the folks that need it. And also shout out to the sales engineers. I love our sales engineers. They're fantastic, and I couldn't do my job without them. So Derek, way to go.
Love hearing it. Yeah. And, you mentioned something a moment ago. You talked about kind of like the grind and how important time management is. I just want to kind of throw it to all you guys, and, just want to hear from you guys. And when you started your sales careers, kind of like talk about some of the skills that you guys had to maybe learn really quickly, or had to learn to translate from your athletic careers to your sales careers that kind of have led you down this path of being successful.
Yeah, Kevin, thanks. One of the things Nick said really stood out to me, grinding when you're first in a sales territory. I think one of the things I had to learn pretty quickly was that not every deal is a good deal. So like you said, you're chasing these certain deals and you're looking after, your pipeline and your quota, and you think, yeah, this is the one, this will help me get there. And then you realize, gosh, I've been working on this for 6 months and it's going absolutely nowhere. And it's nothing that you've done, it's just how the deal's being set up. So I think prioritizing not only your day, but your weeks, your month, your quarters, I think that's the hardest thing when you get into any new sales job, because you're learning about the product, you're learning about your customers, and you're trying to also learn either about the company you're working for or just your boss and how they kind of work. And I think just kind of prioritizing your accounts and what deals are the most important ones is probably the soundest advice that I got when I first started.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. This is like very relatable. If anybody else has something that they want to jump in, I'm sure this hits a lot of chords with the rest of the panelists. But having the
Mhm.
understanding that, like you were saying, not every deal is going to be worth, I guess, like, is the juice worth the squeeze? I'm sure we've all heard that. And so it's kind of like, I'm sure that is a huge part on top of the time management and just kind of understanding what is going to be kind of a revenue generating activity. So was that something that kind of like that you guys had to learn on your own, or did you guys have mentors in the profession that really helped you understand that?
Both. Yeah, both. So just to jump in, I definitely echo that. Prior to that, especially as you get more advanced in your career, you get a little bit more comfortable. I've worked several sales roles, from like the introductory, you're just cold calling, sales development, pounding the phone, setting up meetings, to closing roles, and now my current role. And obviously, before I had to learn prioritization, I had to first develop a callus. You kind of need to develop a callus in sales and lose that fear of rejection, lose that fear of a negative social interaction with a stranger. And after you learn that, then you can really start, figuring out your strategy, figuring out how you want to approach, how do you want to prioritize opportunities, how do you actually assess and qualify opportunities effectively, because you only have, so many hours in the day, and there's only so many good opportunities out there for you to spend your time on. And obviously it's certainly a grind, but it's obviously key to be strategic with that grind and go and pursue opportunities that are the highest likelihood of success. So I definitely agree. That's after just getting over or building the callus and removing the fear of rejection and talking to people that don't want to talk to you on a daily basis, because sales, we're interrupting somebody. Like, you're interrupting somebody's day-to-day activity, and you're going to convince them to go down a totally different path potentially than what they're doing today. That takes confidence to be able to do that at scale. So once you get over that, then you got to figure out how to use that confidence strategically to drive the best outcomes possible.
And I want to ask you guys, because you're talking about the grind a lot, and I think that's very interesting. It's obviously very close to what you do as an athlete, but I feel also that the other side is that you're able to see the result of your work pretty quickly, and I think that's very interesting. One, as a motivation, but also if you come from the world of sport, where every day you're working hard, but typically you would see your progress or your improvement or your team getting together and getting better. It seems that the sales world would be very similar in that sense, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's funny, Miriam, because as we continue to talk about, these deals that we're working on, or working with people on our team and seeing them get better, it's also one of the things where you have this quota out there, and every day you're looking at numbers. And I know all you guys do the same thing. Every morning numbers come in, and you look at them and see where you are and what you need to get to where you need to be at the end of the year. So it's also very rewarding. But like Derek said, one of the things that's the hardest part about our jobs is that you're either interrupting someone, or someone just may not have time for you that day, or they have a bad day. And, there's a lot of times you're just going to get shut down. So one of the things we've been talking about a lot of is, similar to if you're going to be able to play on your team, right? Like, you can't be just good. You need to bring value. So what's the value you're going to bring? So a lot of times, you also need to kind of move from a sales role to a consultant role with these accounts or with your customers, to kind of work with them on things that not only they need, but things that can improve their lives and make them kind of, want to work with you again moving forward.
Yeah, I really like that, Mike. It's because this is such a tricky time to sell, right? It's like, it's emotional. Like, people are going through stuff. Like, you don't know who you're calling, and somebody's going to pick up. They might be like just trying to hold on to their business, and you're calling them to like sell them something. So I think you got to be very, like, at the end of the day, yes, we need to hit quotas and we need to produce, but you got to be, I love that, like, selling as a consultant more. Like, it's almost like planting a seed and adding value. But it makes me think with grinding and like, cause right now I'm having a pretty slow month. Right. And I've been in this position before, and I remember like thinking back to just the grit that I think some athletes, like, we learn about having this, like, to get out of the mud and to like pick up momentum, because momentum's everything. And if you're kind of in that moment where you're stuck and you're not really like selling, but it takes that little extra kind of, yeah, I just call it grit, just pretty much just like grinding it out. And then because we've all been there before, I think, whether it's in sales at this company or in sports before, but that's what I kind of look to. So I'm kind of in that position now. It's like, it's selling as being a consultant, but like, I'm coming up at the end of the month, so guess what? I have commission breath. But no, but there's always that balance. And I think one thing that it's just great to have a team and also just have a chat like this, because it's not just month after month. It's not month over month. Sure, you want to hit your quota, but it's longer term. You know, everything's a process. So you have to be able to think longer and not just like weekly and monthly. That's kind of where my
absolutely. And sorry, go ahead, Miriam.
No, I was gonna switch gear a little bit, so you should go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the only thing I was going to add is I want to definitely echo those sentiments about selling as a consultant. The most impactful sales book I read, my sales manager gave it to me, back when I was starting out, was the Challenger Sale, and it's really based and it starts out kind of talking through who could sell effectively during the financial crisis in 2008 and who was not selling effectively. And the people that were consultants, gave value, educated their prospects, were the ones doing the best. So if anyone's really interested in pursuing a sales career, strongly recommend that book. And then just in terms of value or lessons I've taken from sports that have helped in sales, we are uniquely positioned to manage the stress of sales more than those who are not athletes, particularly because we're used to being measured on a daily basis. Working in these companies, a lot of people are not used to being measured on a daily basis or weekly basis. They're used to maybe like, and there's plenty of other roles in the company where they're not being measured in a very specific way where you're held accountable. So certainly our comfort level of being measured and held accountable on a daily basis, I think, gives us a mental edge to manage some of the stresses of sales more effectively than if you didn't do sports. And then obviously the work ethic side and the ability to grind through and overcome adversity and push your limits all helps you be able to work through a rut, because in sales, even the top reps, it's cyclical. You're going to have waves that you'll be able to ride, and you're going to have downturns no matter how good of a sales rep you are. And being mentally tough enough to not let that totally scuttle you and push through it is, I think, another lesson sports can help you with.
And Derek, that's perfect, because I was going to ask you guys, obviously sales is a job that a lot of athletes get into for exactly what all the reasons you described. I think there's a lot of athletes that jump from college into sales role. I was curious for your situation, each one of you. Was this a choice? Did you go into a sales job because this was something you wanted to do, or was it because maybe there were more positions available and you sort of fell into it? I'm just curious if it was a life choice.
Yeah, I'll chime in here. So I'll bring it all the way back to the last 4.5, 5 months that I was playing hockey professionally still, or minor professional. And I knew that it was, the writing was on the wall. It was time to hang them up. And I pretty much knew that sales is what I wanted to go into, and also it was what I had the most skills to transition directly into and be successful. And I remember people always saying, in sales, you can grind it out and make money by grinding. We've brought that term up a few times here. There's definitely a direct correlation with what I do, with that word grind, from whether it was shooting 10,000 pucks in a month when I was still playing hockey, or now making 100 cold calls a week. It's simple, but I knew that I was set up to have success in sales because I had that drive. I had the ability, as well as my counterparts on any team I was on, that if you had to put in the work to get something done, you could have direct results from as much work as you wanted to put in. So sales for me was a no-brainer. I said earlier in the call, I started in med device, and I pushed very hard to get into med device. Once I got into it, I found out it really wasn't what I was looking for. And when I jumped over to the tech side of things, it was more of that grind, I would say, of cold calling and just continually hearing no from people that you need to turn into a yes at some point.
Anybody else? How did you get into the industry?
Sure.
Yeah, Miriam, it's pretty funny. I knew nothing about med device sales when I graduated. I worked for a venture capital fund, a fund to fund, and I think I was on that financial path. And when I started with Stryker, I was, I had a connection there. Someone knew who I was and was looking for someone in kind of a marketing finance role at the company. I knew nothing about the medical device industry at all. And, working there for a few years, you started to learn about it. And like Nick said, you see these people who become really successful in what they do. And then I thought, hey, it'd be great to try my hand in a sales role. And, it's hard, not coming from a sales background, not knowing exactly what you're doing. Like Nick said, you're not only grinding, but you're trying to strategically look at these accounts and have them buy something from you. And that's kind of, and Derek said, Challenger book, I was also given that book early in my career. And I go back to that even so today, and trying to manage people and manage your accounts and manage long-term relationships, I think, as well. But, I think I was very fortunate to be in this industry because there's so many different ways it can go. And, being here for, 14 years now with first Stryker and now a great company with Arthrex, and, we're the leader in sports medicine devices, and we get to work with a lot of top orthopedic surgeons. It's a lot of fun, but it was not something I had planned to do out of school. So, I'm lucky to be here.
Yeah, myself included. I kind of right when I transitioned, I came back from Budapest in 2013. I moved back up to the Bay Area in Menlo Park, and I did as most young professionals do. You go and apply for an SDR role, right? And so I went on interviews, and just like, I don't know. I mean, there was something about, I went on a lot of interviews and had a couple opportunities, and just I would look at those cold call like sections and just be like, I didn't know if that was going to be for me. And I was really hesitant in the sales position. And so I started working in marketing, actually, in Menlo Park for a temporary housing company in the insurance business. That led me ultimately to start my own business, which then I started to really get into sales and enjoy it. Because I was obviously selling a product I was passionate about, and I was from the ground up. But the biggest thing that, like, I think sales, what I love about it, and now I'm so passionate in doing the full cycle of prospecting to closing and onboarding, is the flexibility. Like Nick was saying, it's like you put in the work and you reap the rewards, right? You can put in as much as you want, and that's what you get out of it. So it's, it's stressful, but like Derek was saying, I think a lot of athletes are built for sales roles if you can find that the right process to be put into and be learning. So,
do you think that you guys are reproducing the highs and lows of sport sort of in your work? It seems like, there's daily small wins, and then there's wins at the end of the month. And do you think that some of the emotion you had as an athlete, you sort of get in your work now?
Yeah, Miriam, I would say so. Obviously with everyone on the call, any big win is celebrated, right? It may not come every day, but if it's once a month or once a quarter, whether it's yourself or your team, it's definitely celebrated. And there's also big losses as well, and those bum everyone out. But similar to sports, if you lose a big game, you kind of go back to the drawing board and look to see what you did wrong and try to improve those things. And, when you have big wins, you try to replicate those once again. So, you definitely get a lot of the feelings from sports and what we do, I would say.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of us have had quality coaching, especially considering all the schools everyone went to. And I think we certainly celebrate the wins and probably remember the losses a little bit more than some of the wins, unfortunately. But really importantly, I think, at least I know, with my coaching, I was trained to celebrate the wins briefly, and then you got to keep moving forward to the next game or to the next opportunity. And I think that sets us up for success too, because we're used to that constant competing and dealing with the wins and losses. And then when we win, we celebrate briefly, and then we got to move forward to, because the clock's never done, right? It's always a new month. It's always a new quarter. So you always have to have the right mindset to be ready to move forward once that quarter ends or when that month ends, depending on your sales cycles or your reporting cycles.
Yeah, one thing for me that's a little bit of a challenge, just to throw it out there, and I don't know if you guys have struggled with this in your earlier kind of when you were starting in sales, but going from like a top level in athletics and then going into sales, I always wanted the whale, so I was always kind of like looking for the big win, and I had to and I still have to check myself on little wins. So it's easy to overlook a small win, whether it's just setting up 3 appointments in a day. That's a pretty good day, but it's easy to overlook them. And so I don't know if you guys ever struggled with that, but it's something I have to kind of be consciously thinking about on in my process, is making sure that, because then you start to get a little bit gosh, I'm not really getting that momentum, but you really are. It's just you're thinking maybe a little bit more towards the big wins and not those little daily metrics.
Yeah, that's certainly a challenge, especially since we're all very competitive. And in sales, you're always stacked ranked in some way, at least when you're in a closing function or even sales development function. And I know for me it was hard being competitive and in the early days not being able to lead that leaderboard at the start while I'm just kind of working my way up and figuring out a new industry, a new job. So that to me was probably the hardest part, is just, not being at the top of the leaderboard, in my early days while I'm still trying to develop.
Yeah, I agree, JP. It's hard. I think the one thing I keep coming back to is that it's a long-term thing, right? If it's short-term and you're in and out, then, let's go after the big whales and see what happens. But if this is a business you're trying to build similar to the ones you've kind of started, you've always kind of started small and then kind of, built those up from there. And, I look at sales territories the same way. You just, any win is a good win to start, and then you just kind of take momentum from there and move forward.
Yeah, it's interesting. A couple of you guys have talked about the hard work that it takes to be successful, and we obviously have that from our athletic careers. And I've also heard a couple of you guys talk about you had previous industries that you guys were involved in, you had previous companies that you guys were involved in. So maybe just talk a little bit about maybe if you found yourself in a role that wasn't 100% a fit, kind of how did you make that distinction? And, how do you know when to kind of keep grinding as we're talking about? And then how do you know kind of when to look within yourself and say, okay, maybe this company or this role or this industry isn't the right fit for me?
Yeah, Derek, you can go.
Yes, for sure. So I think I can definitely answer this question well, since I've done a lot of different sales roles. I started out at Google doing both the development and closing function for one of their products that, you guys know Google, they have 4 products that pay for all the bills and 20 other projects that don't pay for the bills. And I was selling one of those other ones, and it was hard, and it was not a good product. And then that I was able to learn every step along the way. I'm able to learn what I like and what I don't like. And I learned pretty quickly selling a product you don't believe in is incredibly difficult. So after I transitioned from Google, went to a startup that I actually really believed in the product and felt really good. Yeah, this is really driving value for businesses, and I know I can sell this authentically and passionately. And then I started out doing sales development, just cold calling people. And then you kind of feel what do you like? What do you not like? I personally was not, I didn't enjoy, even though I did it as much as I needed to, I didn't enjoy the rejection, the calling 9 out of 10 people not wanting to talk to me. That became very exhausting to me over time. So I eventually, but I did love the sales part in the actual talking to people who were trying to solve a problem for their business, and I had the solution with my product to solve that problem. I really loved that conversation. So I was like, all right, what's the next sales job where I don't have to cold call people and I can just try to solve their business problems and talk to them about solving their business problems? And that's where I found this kind of niche in the middle role of sales engineer, that where all I had to do was product deep dives and product demonstrations and talking to them about what they need and seeing how the product can do that for them and solving those and running trials and testing of the product. So it was great. And then I found that job. I didn't have to do something I didn't enjoy, and I got to do things that I did enjoy. And you kind of got to feel it out. And that's what I always tell like my teammates who are transitioning or people who ask me about how do you figure out what job to do. And nothing really replaces doing the job, right? You just learn so much by trying something, and then you'll have a better direction after you actually give it a shot.
Yeah, Mike, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
No, I mean, I think Derek hit the nail on the head. You know, the quote I'm taking from that is something I truly believe in, is that if you really don't believe in the product, you shouldn't be trying to sell it, because it's going to come across to your accounts. It's going to come across to the people you work with that you're just not really passionate about it. And, you know, as we go back to talking about being a consultant for these people, if you're trying to sell someone something that that you don't really think is going to work, they can read that from you. You know, I think the hardest thing about moving positions, whether it's a sales job or whether it's a marketing job, into anything, especially starting out, is leaving that job and not having something else to kind of fall back on. And I think that's the scariest thing. But I also think at some point we all have to do that, especially early in our careers when, you know, maybe all we have to do is pay the rent. You know, we don't have family and kids and those types of things. You know, I would advise people to take that risk if they're not happy at a position, and start looking and kind of networking and seeing what else is out there. And then from there, you know, maybe you find a career that you're passionate about. But like Derek said, if you're not passionate about exactly what you're doing, then you should do something different.
Yeah,
and as we talk about, sorry, Evan.
No, just saying, I love the message. Like, you got to try it. You maybe fail a couple of times,
Yeah.
and hopefully that leads you to what you're really passionate about and what you love. That's all I wanted to say. So go ahead, Miriam. I
was going to ask you guys about the pay structure in sales is pretty specific to other job, and I think for athletes or student athletes that are about to graduate and embark on a career in sales, can you explain a little bit what you guys have, the different type of pay structure that you've experienced, and talk a little bit about the commission as well, because I don't think that it's clear for all of the student athletes. Anybody want to start?
I'll go. I mean, there's a bunch of different ways you can look at it. There's a lot of these companies that will have, you know, sales plus commission and bonus. There's also a lot of companies that just have pure commissions. And like Nick said, it's kind of, they call it, you get paid what you kill, you know, and that's a deal that you win. And a lot of places are like that. And, you know, when you're talking about grinding, that is truly grinding. And a lot of entry-level sales positions are like that. And, you know, there's a high reward for that, but it's also a little scary just getting into that, because if you're not making enough money to pay your bills, then, you know, then it becomes an issue. But, you know, there's a lot of different ways to do it, at least in medical devices. I'm not sure so much, Derek, about software sales, or JP or Nick, what you guys are doing, but maybe you guys can touch on that.
Yeah, I'll chime in here because I've brought it up a couple times where I initially jumped into medical sales, and I was on a very heavily weighted commission style contract. So I had a very small base salary and basically would live off my commission. I was basically put into a role that I was given a chance by the manager. I skipped essentially 2 years of an interim role and was given a full territory with my first job right out of being done playing hockey, and basically had to figure it out on the go. So it was going well, but I had to take a step back and realize, okay, I'm going to be in sales. I know I'm going to be in sales the rest of my life. but I wasn't learning what I needed to in terms of the entire sales cycle from start to finish and getting the training that really I needed to go back and learn that. So I looked at the tech avenue because using my network, the people that I was talking to said, hey, here's a couple of companies that would be very good for, learning the cold calling, learning how to do drops, learning how to manage a sales cycle with a software engineer or a sales engineer like Derek on the call. How do you work with other members to position your product in a consultative manner? I had to go back and relearn those things. And when I jumped to the tech side, it was more of a split. I would say 60-40 base to commission. And I would say tech jobs usually will have a higher base than a med device position. But it's just very company dependent and really what industry you're selling into for commission and base salaries.
Is this something that changes over time as you progress in the rank of your company? Your pay structure will go more towards a higher base?
Yeah, well, like when you're starting, I'll speak just from the software tech space, they tend to have like different levels, like sales development role, which is the normal entry level role where you're just cold calling and booking meetings. So you'll get a commission off of how many meetings you book, and maybe some companies will give you a little bite at the apple if the deal actually closes. And then you're, at least now when I was doing it, it was about half based to commission in terms of your on-track earnings, but it was never capped, which is great. So just like, JP was talking about, you can get out of it what you get, or what you put into it. And then on the closing roles, it can often, at least in the tech industry where it's very competitive and very much a lot of venture capital raising and very hyper growth focused, they're willing to give you that base salary, to recruit the top talent. So again, it was about half from some of the reps that I worked with as well, uncapped, of course. And then as you get to the management level, it's different, right? So you're going to be less incentivized on individual deals. You're incentivized on, performance of the company or the team. So for me personally, now that I'm not an individual contributor, my commission is based off of our overall sales performance for that month, right? And it's the same way. So leadership, they're paid on attainment of an annual goal or a monthly goal or a quarterly goal, and they get their commission paid off of that. And as you go higher and higher, depending on the company and their stage, they may supplement some of that income with some kind of equity or stock grants, especially like in the management level, they'll grant you some stock. And some of the really big companies, that's a fantastic situation because you're not going to get taxed income. That's honestly one of the hardest part about sales, is that it's a great job where you can make really good money, but you're going to be taxed a little bit higher too, because all of your income is from, payroll, which is going to be, depending where you're at, 30, 40, 50%.
That makes sense. Perfect. You guys I know you said we're having some slower months right now, and things are, you don't know who you're going to get on the phone. Like,
we don't have slow months.
Oh, you don't have slow months?
No slow months over here.
Awesome. That's great. I was actually going to say that you're whether it's the tech industry or the medical, those are pretty thriving and often recruiting and recruiting athletes. And so I just wanted to sort of get a sense of what's the trend right now, and are you guys still hiring? Are your teams still hiring? What's the growth looking like?
Yeah, Miriam, we're pushing forward. I think with med device, a lot of the elective cases were canceled for a month and a half, I would say. But on the back end of that, all those cases need to happen. So all those are starting to come forward now over the last, I would say, 3 weeks. You're starting to see a lot of places open up. Obviously, places like New York and Boston will be a little slower to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, everything's going to be ramped back up. And we're looking to kind of get back to baseline or get back to normal, hopefully, by the end of June with the numbers. But in the meantime, yeah, we're definitely still hiring and looking for good people to join our organization and join our team. I think that's, you kind of have to kind of have to hire for the future, I would say, and not for the present. Because if you don't have enough people, once your growth is a certain point, then you're going to be behind the 8 ball. So yeah, we're still looking to hire good people and move forward.
Yeah, and the software space is very much a mixed bag. A lot of companies, if you're servicing hospitality industry, for example, you're dramatically impacted. And I've heard some companies reduce their staff 30, 40, 50% if they're serving restaurants or hospitality industry. My company we service essential workers, HVAC, plumbing, electrical contractors, so we're a little less impacted. But we've had to definitely slow our growth down and limit growth to very specific roles. Whether that's engineering or software engineering, stuff like that. But the good news about sales is, regardless of growth, and even though we've slowed down and kind of paused our growth till the market starts behaving a little bit more friendly. You're always every company's cycling through salespeople. So if if someone's a low performer, they're going to cycle them out within a few months to 6 months. So regardless of the company's growth trajectory, there should always be there's always someone out there hiring for salespeople for any role. So that's the beauty of this position. It's certainly a volatile role, but there's always going to be a ton of opportunities to do it, as long as you're willing, to look for the right place in the right company.
JP and Nick, any do you want to chime in?
Yeah, we're hiring. I know we're hiring. We essentially, our business took a hit for sure, because we're servicing small to medium businesses, so across all verticals. So definitely some verticals were impacted with our monthly marketing service. But we also service essential businesses as well. So you think of like contractors, subcontractors, a lot of medical practices doing telemedicine, and now more than ever they need the right messaging out there, and marketing could be massively beneficial to businesses. So we are growing, not at the pace we were before everything has happened, but for anybody that's starting out in sales, I always say, like, if you're able to come in somewhere and have an opportunity to learn, that is the biggest thing. Because I started in sales and I was figuring it out, like probably most of you guys. Like, even when we're athletes, we're selling ourselves to be on a team. It's like you're just figuring out a way to like market and promote yourself. And if you're able to like the first thing I learned at Rev Local is how to overcome an objection. And it's like, when somebody tells you no, like I never knew how to do that. 16 months ago, I learned for the first time. And just like little things like that is like crazy. So if you're able to even like get in somewhere, like if you're transitioning, or just try it, you never know what, that role's gonna be like, so, just no better way to do it than try.
You always have to sell something. No matter what you do. So it's worth trying for that alone.
Well, I really like the message of the fact that you guys, it slowed down, but it's still going, and there's still opportunities out there. Because obviously there's a lot of athletes who are no longer athletes and didn't necessarily choose it at this point in time, and they've been looking for jobs. And I think it's a little downing to go on the market in this type of economy, but to hear that there are still opportunities and still companies that are hiring, I think it's definitely a positive, right? So we are at the end of our hour and webinar, and I think we're gonna wrap up, unless there is anything that you guys want to add, or that we didn't touch on, or that you feel that we've missed on talking about your job and the industry, or perhaps of the skills that you've transferred. And any last word from anybody?
Yeah,
No, Miriam and Evan, thanks.
Yep. I'll let you guys go. Who's up first?
No, I just, Nick here. Yeah, just one thing that I struggled with a little bit off the beginning, and everyone on this call, you're an athlete at some point, whether you played in the NFL or you played collegiately. There's definitely a humble factor, a humbling factor to when you get your first job in sales, whether you're thrown a bone and you climb the ladder faster than someone else right away, or you come in and you're literally just learning how businesses work and you're learning how to set appointments for someone else who's making way more money than you. There's a lot of different factors, but you definitely have to be humble and realize it's a learning curve. And the harder you work and the more that you listen to people around you and learn from those who maybe weren't an athlete, but they're kicking the crap out of their number because they've been doing this for 10 years, the faster you can learn from those people, I would just absolutely say that's the best thing you could do for your career, at least for myself. I just got in, learned the business, learned the basics, and now I can bring some of the swagger back.
Nice. I would say for those on the fence considering it, the great thing about sales is regardless of your experience in it and whether you succeed or don't, you're going to learn an incredible set of skills that you'll use for the rest of your life. No matter what you end up doing in your career, you're always going to have to sell yourself to somebody to get an opportunity. You're always going to have to sell someone else on an idea that you have. You're going to have to sell potentially a product to somebody, and just the kind of skills that sales provides you will carry you, whether you totally go and start your own business or whether you go and just go down a totally different path. You'll build a confidence in terms of asking for what you want. You'll build a confidence in terms of talking to strangers and having difficult discussions, and you'll build a confidence on how to win the outcomes that you're trying to win. So regardless, if you are on the fence, there is no downside, in my opinion, to learning how to sell stuff. And if you don't like it, you can take those skills and apply it to whatever other career that you want.
That was a great point. Yeah. Mike, you wanted to add something?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, Miriam, I appreciate you getting everyone together in different industries. And I think everyone brought up some great points today that, you know, I'll definitely take home and, you know, share with my teams. But, yeah, I appreciate you and Evan doing this.
Thanks.
Yeah,
JP,
thank you.
So much
anything
for
you want to
joining.
add? Sorry, Evan.
That's good.
JP, did you want to add anything?
Oh, you were waiting on me? Sorry. No, that's it. No, really good to meet everybody and hear about your kind of your path. And I know it's inspiring to always hear talk to other athletes that are in sales roles. And, you know, we all go through the same things, right? There's ups and downs. And so it's great to chat with everybody.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you
Thank you, guys.
Really, really appreciate your time, your willingness to do that. It's very inspiring to hear everybody's different stories, and super useful for our community and the athletes out there. So thanks again. And you all enjoy the great long weekend. Hopefully you get to enjoy outdoors.
With a mask
Definitely
on,
will.
yeah.
Will do.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys.
Take care.
Yeah, have a great weekend.
Thank you.